Health organizations all over the world are on high alert for a virus you might not have heard of, but you definitely should. It's called Nipah. It's a bat-borne pathogen that has the terrifying potential to cause the next pandemic. So it all boils down to this one simple but pretty unsettling question, right? How does a virus just living its life harmlessly inside a fruit bat suddenly jump species and cause a deadly brain-swelling disease in humans? Well, today we're going to trace that exact journey right from the very beginning. All right, let's go back. The year is 1998. The place is Malaysia. Out of nowhere, pig farmers start getting sick with this really bizarre, mysterious illness. At first, nobody had a clue what was going on, but as more and more people started showing the same symptoms, it turned into this massive medical puzzle with life or death stakes.
So, part one, a mysterious outbreak. This was a really scary time, full of confusion, as doctors and scientists were just scrambling to figure out what in the world they were up against.
And the picture was just confusing. Patients would come in with what looked like a bad flu, fever, headache, but then it would escalate and fast into severe brain inflammation. The first guess was Japanese encephalitis, which made sense for the region, but none of the usual control measures worked. The virus just kept spreading, and in the end, it claimed 109 lives in that first outbreak. So, part two is all about identifying the virus. With the death toll climbing, the race was on to find the real culprit. This was the moment everything changed, when a brand new enemy finally got its name. And this is what they found. Scientists managed to isolate a completely new pathogen from a patient in a village called Sungai Nipah, and that's how the virus got its name. And look, it's an RNA virus. Now, that little detail is a really big deal. RNA viruses are notorious for mutating and adapting quickly, and that's a trait that always keeps scientists on their toes. To really get how this virus is so nasty, you gotta look at its structure. See these little spikes all over the surface? Think of them as its personal break-in kit. The G protein is like a skeleton key that's perfectly shaped to find the lock on our cells. And the F protein? That's the crowbar that forces the door open, letting the virus rush right inside. Okay, so we've got our culprit, we've identified the virus, but the big question is, how did it make that incredible leap from an animal into people in the first place? This is where the detective work of epidemiology comes in, tracing the infection all the way back to its source. And the trail led investigators straight to these guys, fruit bats of the Cherapis genus. A lot of people call them flying foxes. These bats are what we call the natural reservoir. That means they carry the virus, but a lot of the time, they don't even get sick themselves. They're just the perfect host, spreading it silently across huge distances as they fly. Now, what's really fascinating here is that the virus doesn't always use the same playbook to infect people. In that first outbreak in Malaysia, it took a two-step path. Bats dropped contaminated fruit, pigs ate it, and the pigs acted as an amplifying host, meaning the virus just multiplied like crazy inside them before jumping to farmers. But in Bangladesh, whoa. The route was way more direct. Bats contaminated raw date palm sap, which is a popular sweet drink, and people got sick simply by drinking it. And when you look at this map, wow, this really puts the scale of the potential threat into perspective. That huge blue outline, that's the entire geographical range of these fruit bats. The dots show where outbreaks have already happened, but let's be real, anywhere these bats live is potentially at risk for a future spillover. And here's the really scary part. The chain of infection doesn't stop with that first person. We've seen it in outbreaks in Bangladesh and India. The virus can spread from person to person, mostly through respiratory droplets. And that ability to spread between humans is what gives a virus pandemic potential. It makes it so much harder to contain. All right, so once this thing is inside a person, what does it actually do? Let's take a closer look at the mechanics of how this pathogen causes such absolutely devastating disease. So remember that G protein, that skeleton key we talked about? This is where it goes to work. It's a perfect match for a very specific lock found on our own cells, a receptor called ephrin B2. And the really bad news is that this particular lock is found all over the cells that line our blood vessels, which basically gives the virus a VIP pass to our entire internal highway system. Once it's in, it follows this brutal path of destruction. First, boom. It gets into the bloodstream. From there, it launches a direct assault on the lining of our blood vessels. This triggers a massive body-wide inflammation called vasculitis. And from there, it's just chaos. Blood clots, organ damage, and the most critical one, that terrifying swelling in the brain. And all that damage happening on the inside, well, it leads to some truly horrific outcomes on the outside. For some people, it hits the lungs hard, causing severe respiratory distress. For others, it's a rapid, tragic descent into encephalitis. Patients become disoriented, drowsy, they suffer seizures, and can fall into a coma and die, sometimes in just a matter of days. So given how unbelievably dangerous this virus is, there is a massive global effort to figure out how to counter it. So let's talk about where we are in that battle. What's the global fight back look like? Let's just start with this number, because it really explains the urgency. 40 to 75%. That's the case fatality rate for Nipah virus. That means in some outbreaks, 3 out of every 4 people who get infected don't survive. It's an incredibly lethal virus, and that is exactly why the World Health Organization calls it a priority pathogen. With a killer like this on the loose, prevention is everything. It's really the only weapon we have right now. So the public health advice is super direct. Stay away from sick animals, don't eat or drink things that could be contaminated by bats, and for our amazing healthcare workers, strict use of PPE and constant hand washing is absolutely non-negotiable. As of today, there's no magic bullet, no specific cure for Nipah. Treatment is what we call supportive care, basically just managing the symptoms as best as possible. But, and this is a big but, there is real hope on the horizon. A ton of research is focused on things like monoclonal antibodies and, the real game changer, developing a human vaccine. This right here gets to the heart of how we have to think about these diseases now. It's a concept called One Health. The idea is simple. You can't just focus on human medicine in a bubble. You have to understand how the health of humans, the health of animals like pigs and bats, and the environment they all share are all deeply connected. It's the only way to really tackle the problem at its source. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? We know the source, we know the pathways it takes to get to us, we know the devastation it causes when it arrives. So, as we continue to expand into animal habitats, the biggest challenge for all of us remains. How do we prevent the next deadly spillover from happening?